Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Elixir RoundTable. I'm your host, Brooklin Meyers, and today I am joined by Mike Binns and Matthew Stebbins. It has been a bit of a quiet week for us, so just the three of us today, and it felt relevant to me as a result to speak a bit about energy, maintaining energy levels while programming, maintaining interest in what you're doing. One of the struggles I've been having lately that I would love to get some ideas and feedback on from both of you is we have been doing the first official cohort of DockYard Academy for a month and almost a month and a half now. And I've started to see some students start to wear out a bit. They've been working really hard. The course is incredibly demanding, and I've started to notice energy levels begin to drip. And so this isn't unique to the school experience. This is something that I think we all experience in our jobs, in our social lives, with our families. Having low energy levels is a common experience, especially when you're doing something fairly intense. So I'd love to hear about both of your experiences with that, and if you have any ideas on how to address that within the team.
Yeah, I can. So for me, my position on projects here at DockYard, I'm bouncing around between a number of different projects. But even with that, what I find where I kind of get into that, low energy, kind of just not super motivated about stuff, is generally when I've been doing the same thing, just kind of, I guess to say the fix for me is to change things up, right? Like to get something new going on. For me, I was starting to get towards that sort of a place, and then Phoenix 1.7 came out last week or a couple weeks ago, and that's something I've been watching. And so for both of the projects that I'm on, I jumped in and got to lead the upgrade for both of those, and so that was something that was exciting for me, something new. And this week for me has been a much more energetic and kind of a motivated week, because I got to change things up, So I think for me, that'd be the key. The key, if things are starting to get starting to just kind of like drag on, and you're not feeling that see what it is that you can change up, see if there's something you can adjust. And obviously, in as far as your professional life, that's not necessarily always something you can do. I'm lucky to be able to kind of bounce around to that sort of stuff. But if that's not something that you can do in your professional life, then maybe that's something you need to do, outside of that. If that's a fun coding project or whatever, or you can just, if whatever your thing is, change things up, I guess would be the TLDR on that.
Yeah, I can see how sometimes it starts to feel like you're chewing dirt when you do the same thing day in, day out. Even something you adore and love, like I've gotten fed up with certain projects or things that I was doing that I absolutely adore and think are fantastic. And sometimes taking a bit of a break has helped. Sometimes you don't always have the luxury of a break. So I like the idea of just changing things up and getting a bit of variety. Like today, for example, the intent for today's class was to cover the beginning of Phoenix. So we're going to show them how to scaffold a Phoenix application. There were a few drills related to Phoenix to just get them comfortable with the basics of Phoenix, but felt like everyone's energy level was very low this week. I could see them starting to drain, and I didn't just want to throw more at them. So decided to change the plan, have them start brainstorming their capstone project. Idea was thinking about something that would be interesting to them, and just planning out this exciting new project would hopefully help their energy levels pick up a bit. So taking a break, changing things, definitely, well, hopefully going to help. We'll see. Maybe I'll have to report back on the next roundtable and let folks know whether or not it is working. One of the other things I'm starting to see very related to the energy levels is discouragement, right? So like I mentioned, we have students who have come in with really strong backgrounds. We have other students who are doing it brand new. And I think it is unfortunately human to compare ourselves to others, right? And so you start to get discouragement when students start to feel like they are behind the relative pace of the class. And so that's one thing I've been trying to figure out how to address in people is how do I keep them engaged, motivated, self-confident while they're experiencing this. So I'm curious what you two think about that.
Coming from a non-engineering background, but doing marketing in ad tech, martech, and like the consultancy space my whole career, I found that, the relationship between like selling the consultancy services and, you all actually signing our paychecks, to say the least. I know for me, it is day in, day out, kind of like making the donuts, because like in marketing, it changes rapidly, but like the work is all kind of like still the same. So while in engineering, like it might be the same, like repetitive task, it's like a different product or different like team or new dynamics because we do rotations and such. But like for my department, and the people I manage, like not much changes. So I have to kind of look in the mirror, and I found something that like really helps me is like change where I work or how I work. And definitely like learn from others' experience to keep my energy level. Even though like I'm a extrovert and I like to joke and have fun. And I believe you can do all three, make money, work hard, but still have fun. And some people might not agree with that, but in marketing, you kind of have to, because there's so many new laws, regulations. This is bad. This campaign isn't working, whatever. And I'm not like directly teaching students like you, Brooklyn, and trying to keep the energy level up, but we still experience it as extroverts in marketing of not wanting to get out of bed or get out of bed proverbially. Obviously, you're get out of bed, but kind of logging in and doing the deal, as they say. But I think when it comes to learning something new, like I always as an individual have a unquenchable thirst for learning something new. Like that's why I joined DockYard Academy and working at it at my own pace, even though like I'm not in your class. Like if you're not learning, you're dying, especially in marketing. You can pick one discipline in engineering or software development and pick a niche, and go with that for 10, 15 years until it dies, right? Like an ember or something like that. So, but like marketing kind of as a whole, you need to like keep up with the trends and kind of all these new laws that are coming. So there's not going to be a lack of abundance or shortage or scarcity of learning new things. So like if you don't want to learn that, in my opinion and personal experience, then maybe this type of business like isn't for you, because like that's what should be your energy, your battery for energy to not only level up your career but kind of you as a person and a human, is to kind of learn something new. Personally,
it's definitely a career path that has lots of growth and change, and for many people that's what's fun about it, right?
Mm.
I find that people in our industry tend to be the type of people who don't like when things get stale, right? They're the type of people who want change, who want to learn, who want, want the previous month to not look like this month. And so that does, for me, help, right? As their industry is very dynamic. Now, some people burn out of that, right? Some people don't enjoy that, and that's totally okay. But that is part of what helps keeps things fresh with it. Mm-hmm. I think what can definitely cause the kind of burnout and too much stress, though, is the overwork. I think it's very easy in an industry like this to work too hard and kind of sacrifice your long-term for the short-term. Just having too many things on your plate. I mean, everyone here has experienced the busyness that comes with their work, I'm sure. So sometimes things kind of pile up. And yeah, how do you deal with that? When it's not that there's not enough change or that you're not growing or learning, it's just that there's too much. And it's, you lose energy and it kind of drains you over time. And then you get to a point where, you're too tired to do things effectively.
I think Mike's the old vet on that. He works with, a full family, a firefighter, and bounces around. So we'll let him take the mic on that one.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. So I do have as you mentioned, a pretty packed life, not only at work but outside. I'm not sure why, like, so that sort of stuff doesn't. I enjoy being busy. Like, it's just something that it being busy all day long doesn't drain me, I guess. And so maybe that's just the chemical, biological, random thing that's different about me. So unfortunately, there's no magic there that I can share. But yeah, I enjoy getting things done. I enjoy progressing in whatever the things that I'm doing. So a full day of bouncing around between 3 or 4 different projects and jumping into pull request reviews and then jumping in and pairing on a different project and then looking at Slack for an issue someone's having for a third project, like bouncing out that sort of stuff. It doesn't faze me, which again, yeah. So I don't have a technique on that. I do, for me, what I realize when I do get stressed if there's something that I don't have a clear, vision for what I'm supposed to be doing or how it's going to be successful, those are the things that I'll start procrastinating on. And then if enough of those things start building up, then I start like that. The fact that there's these things that need to get done that I don't have a good, clear understanding of where to go with them, that will stress me out. And but sometimes it's actually just even I realize I forget it and then I remember it again. But having a lot of stuff to do, simply having all that kind of out there and not knowing that you have a bunch of different things going on, but not having a clear view of the actual things you need to do, is another time that I start spinning and getting, not being able to focus and not being able to be productive. And for me, it's often as simple as I've got a Trello board, for me, for my stuff, for my personal stuff, for my stuff at DockYard that I have to do. And if I jump in and I get it all written down and I can see it, I'm a visual person. If I can see these are the things that need to get done, I can work through it, prioritize and start knocking stuff off, and being able to drag stuff off that list is motivating for me. So that's how I handle that sort of overwhelm, when things do get overwhelming.
Like it kind of ties into mental toughness, resilience, and then that equals like mental preparedness, and it kind of works, linearly, like through each of them, right?
Mm, yeah, yeah. Yeah, being able to, yeah, having those three together is helpful. Which like I said, I don't always have. So when I don't, that's when things start falling apart, and it's like, well, what's actually going on? Is it, sometimes it is, I've just got a bunch of stuff to do, and I just need to organize it. And sometimes, sometimes it is like, with the fire department, it's a call department. So if I'm out from, 11 p.m. to 4 a.m. for a fire call, it may actually be that I'm just not able to work as well the next day because I don't have that, energy or mental capacity. And that just means, when that happens, it means shifting, right? So like maybe shift my hours to later in the day, get a good morning's sleep, and come back ready to work the 8 hours later in the day. And so just kind of, but I think self-awareness of what's going on is huge. Learning yourself, understanding yourself, and understanding the things, like I said, like the pitfalls, like I run into. I'm like, it takes a while, and I'm like, I'm not in a good space, and I don't understand why. And then it's like, oh yeah, I've got a bunch of things that I need to do. They're all small. A lot of them are small things, and I can knock them off easily. But it's just they're all out there. And as soon as I say, okay, write them down, and then just start working through them, it just like that weight lifts off. So
It's funny. I have the same experience with ambiguity. Having ambiguous workload is really stressful because at every
yes,
moment you feel like, oh God, there's something I'm supposed to be doing. What is it? I don't know.
right, exactly.
And I have that feeling constantly, honestly, because at any given point in time, there is something extra I could be doing. There's probably like a small number of things I actually really have to get done, a larger number of things I want to get done, and a larger number of things that I think I should get done. And so that level of ambiguity becomes tough. So doing a bit of sitting down, brainstorming exactly what it is. I think that's part of why my students might be struggling now that I think about it, is one of the ways we address the skill gap in the course, right? Is I want my top students to be engaged, and I want the struggling students to, well, not struggle. I want them to get the learning requirements out of it and hit the outcomes that have to be hit. And to accomplish that, what I do is I have a lot of extra work, right? So there's kind of, here's the core exercise that we're doing today, exercise or exercises, and then here's 3 or 4 bonuses that you don't have to do. And I've noticed that has created, even in some of my really exceptional students, a feeling of being behind because, well, there's like 5 exercises I haven't done. I was like, but they were bonuses. Yeah, but it doesn't feel that way. It feels like I just haven't done them. So I wonder if we're shooting ourselves in the foot a little bit with that approach. Now, everything has pros and cons, so it might just be a con that we need to address without changing the fundamental structure of the course, because I do find that the bonus system works really well for making sure that that every student is engaged. But I can see that it would have an emotionally draining impact particularly if you're the completionist type that wants to do 100% of everything. So that's really good insight. I appreciate that.
Is there a lot of ambiguity with the programming nature of Elixir though? Like, isn't it pretty like clearly defined, or is it, I mean, I know it's not like JavaScript where there's like crazy outliers and all that, but kind of as a Elixir newbie, like, is there a lot of fear that comes with learning it? You know what I mean? Like there's not like, well, in this case, that might happen 1% of the time. You need to learn it because it might happen 1% of the time. Now, there's a lot of ambiguity in marketing and digital marketing. Like, it's an art and a science. Like, you could put, $10,000 into the market, and if the creative sucks, you're going to blow $10,000. Like, But if your targeting sucks and your creative's good, like you're still going to blow $10,000. So there's a lot of fear that comes with that, and ambiguity of like everyone wants to just kind of like point the finger at each department. But thank the universe that our department is, you know, small, so we don't like have a creative agency. We don't have like an ad ops person, and we don't have like all these people that kind of in my past life like just, you know, pass the buck. But back to the question, is there a lot of ambiguity in learning, you know, Elixir as a new language?
Really cool question. So I'd say that the fundamentals are very straightforward.
Okay.
It's an easy language to pick up relative to some other languages that have more weird stuff and edge cases. And it's a fairly consistent language. Like, it does feel very well thought out when you're experiencing things. Every once in a while, there's something out there where like, oh, like that's kind of a weird edge case. I didn't think about that. But for the most part, it's really highly consistent. There's some struggles with using things in different contexts, right? So pattern matching is probably the biggest struggle.
Yeah, that lesson's interesting. I was looking at that. That's interesting.
Because pattern matching, you need to learn two things. You need to learn, how do I pattern match on a variety of data structures, right? So that requires a really deep understanding of like, what is a map? What is a keyword list? What is a list? Why do I have this head and tail thing when I pattern match on a list? Like, there's a lot of kind of weird cases it's not weird once you understand the data structures, but it requires a deeper amount of knowledge than you might think. I was very surprised because pattern matching, to be honest, came fairly naturally to me when I was introduced to Elixir, but I was also an experienced programmer. So seeing new developers learn it gives me an appreciation of the complexity there. The other thing is, where do I pattern match? Like, why is it that I can pattern match on a parameter? Why can I pattern match in a case statement, but it doesn't really make sense to pattern match in a cond? Why, right? So there's the ambiguity of, where am I allowed to pattern match? So those are the two things that people have to learn with that can be a bit of a struggle. And then things like atoms, I find people do struggle a bit with like keyword lists and atoms, understanding like, why is it an atom when there's a colon after it? But normally I do an atom with it before it. Why? And so there's often some confusion there with just the small things. But other than that, I think the fundamentals, because it's a functional programming language and because it's very well thought out, are easier to pick up than many other languages and are very consistent. And that consistency helps people because they're not constantly feeling like, oh, like, how is this going to work? It's consistent, it's reliable, you can count on it. OTP is where I notice a lot of students start to have their mental models break down, because suddenly you have code that isn't connected, right? Functional programming is all about, I can follow my pipeline of data and see exactly where everything connects. But when you hit OTP, you have invisible code, right? You have callbacks that are being triggered under the hood, and you're sending a process a message, and that process is triggering one of the functions that you've defined. You define this handler, and it's returning a response, it's returning a new state, and understanding that flow is quite hard because you don't see any of it. So we've done things like, we built our own gen server to uncover like what's really going on under the hood. We've done a lot of work with using IO inspects to label each step of the process. We've built a lot of gen servers from scratch. Like, that was an area where lots and lots of students just struggled to see where the connections were, because that's where a lot of things are defined under the hood for you. So as soon as you encounter things like macros, that's where it's not magic, but it's disconnected. So that's where a lot of people tend to struggle. And it's a totally different mental model than most programming paradigms ever really introduce you to.
Cool. Yeah. So I guess a slightly different approach to that question, how I see it. There's two things that I can think of. So one is, so the question is of how, how complex is it, how are the options. So Elixir, we're comparing Elixir to JavaScript, which is not fair to JavaScript, but we'll do it anyway. In JavaScript, if there's something that you want, if there's a thing you want to do, there's like 15 libraries to do it. And most of them were pet projects from 6 years ago that haven't been maintained and, whatever. And so there's just a ton of things, and even among the kind of like accepted by most people ways of doing things, there's still like 6 different ways to do this thing, 6 different huge major libraries to do this thing, and so it's you've got a lot to kind of work through, and decide and figure out, and then learn new on a new project because they're using this one whereas we were using this one. Elixir is a smaller community and therefore has fewer libraries, which often I've actually seen that. I've seen people say, look at Elixir and say, well, there's not the number of packages that are out there is so small, this can't be a good language. What I would say, but what's really going on there is that there's a few good, really good, well-maintained and well-handled libraries to do what you want, and people will kind of gravitate towards those, and they become kind of the standard that you use. And that's not the case in all of the different things you want to do, but a lot of the things that you want to do, it's like, yeah, 90% of the community uses this specific library, and that library is maintained and it's constantly getting updates, right? And so there's that. The other kind of way of addressing that question, as far as, what do you need to learn? I believe that it was like, what's the anxiety about figuring out how to do things and how to do it right.
Right.
Like, what's the right way to do it? One of the great things about Elixir, which may also be it's a pro, but maybe it's a con, is I've seen
which one is it?
I've seen terrible Elixir code written that runs fine, because Elixir itself is so resilient that, like, I've jumped into projects with engineers that read a couple of blog posts on Elixir and then wrote a whole system, and it's not idiomatic. It's not like there's so many better ways to do things and clean whatever, but it runs, and it runs better than you would have in other languages, simply because Elixir is awesome and the beam is awesome, and so it's so those are my two answers to that question of that.
No, those are great answers, because as somebody that's getting into it, and not saying like it's going to be like a new career path in the next 5 years or something, but as the marketing department of DockYard and the educator of DockYard Academy, I guess you would be like the professor, or what's above professor, damn it. Anyway, yeah. You know what I'm trying to say. And then, principal software engineer at DockYard, like, as we try to like grow this ecosystem, collectively, and while it might be a heavy lift, it might blow up, but we've added, NX, DockYard Academy, LiveView natives in the pipeline, Firefly, for compiling the smaller devices. And as we grow the, client services, sector, getting more projects this year, like, it kind of all depends on popularity, ease of use, the health ecosystem. And I just think it's cool to be a part of something. It's not in its infancy, to say the least, but I know it's exciting for me as a marketer to be able to kind of position it and make some cool stuff around it, and this being one of the mediums that, like, we're growing to. Yeah, there's other Elixir podcasts out there, but not many people are doing what Brian and DockYard and we are doing as a squad to put all of our resources and free time, right? Because this is technically like a DockYard day for you all to work in a library or do what you wish in the ecosystem. So it'll be a lot of fun the next couple of months to really put Elixir out there as a functional programming language for larger enterprise level companies. And on the last roundtable, Brian was just saying how that's kind of been not one of our strong suits is, selling to larger enterprise companies as Elixir as a ecosystem solution, just because with the React framework, still in JavaScript, like it just had the notoriety of, I guess, Meta, Facebook, Zuckerberg behind it. But we got our own celebrities to help pump it. But it really is going to take a village, and just cool to be a part of it. And I'm saying all that to say this. What would you guys, we started off kind of talking about burnout and mental health and how to deal with that, but what are some of the key benefits from switching? I forget whose Slack profile it is, but they call themselves a JavaScript refugee. And my first week here, I just thought that was funny as hell. Just because I dabbled in React a little bit as an agency owner, just because it was a popular thing to build stuff in. Once WordPress and PHP was kind of getting like a Squarespace or whatever, and just talking about websites and web. But what would be one of the joys of being able to teach it and then kind of go in and clean stuff up and rip out the guts of something on a principal level type deal? Because I'm a positive input kind of person and not live in the problem, but be a part of the solution. And I think in the world that we live in, everybody just kind of wants to commiserate in the problem. So whoever wants to take that one away.
So let me make sure I understand the question. To kind of boil it down to the base, what are the benefits of transitioning into Elixir? Yeah.
Why would, hey, I've been in PHP or C#, I'm looking for a new life, a new career. Why would I join this next paid cohort? Why would I do such and such? Because that's me personally. I love marketing. I love branding. I love digital marketing, all that. But that could all change. I don't know. I'm just saying because I understand it, but I'd have to jump in 2 feet and really do it.
Well, I'd be very excited to have you as a student, Matthew.
I already am. You just don't know it.
That's true. It is actually totally tangent. It's very wild to me how many people are doing this that I don't know, who are going self-paced. Man, I would love to meet everyone who is doing DockYard Academy at their own pace. Some people send me messages.
Maybe we start a Slack channel on that, or do we have that?
We don't have an open channel for people. We have the DockYard Discord, which you get to join if you become an official member. I don't want to tangent us more though, because I really do want to answer your question.
I'm good at tangent. I'm just good at that. Sorry.
I think Mike's going to do a way better job of answering the technical side of this question. So I want to speak to the human side. Cool. I think that the Elixir community is very special. It's one of the kindest communities I've ever encountered. It really starts from the top. Jose Valim really is a phenomenal human being. And so, we don't have someone who screams and shouts at everyone for being an idiot. We have someone who, I've watched Jose help a brand new Elixir developer debug their system for 3 hours through online communication. You wouldn't see that in another community, right? So we just have a bunch of incredibly giving and supportive people. We have, the education space in Elixir, I think, is phenomenal as well. And we have lots of people willing to give their time. We have people like Jeffrey Matthias, who has shared his information to just talk to people about testing. He answers some of my questions from time to time.
Jeffrey Matthias?
He co-wrote Testing Elixir with, I always mispronounce the name, Andrea Leopardi. I hope that's how you say the name. But he co-wrote Testing Elixir. And I never forget the subtitle, so I just call that book Testing Elixir. Or I never remember it, rather. And you just have so many people who are very kind, very giving. It's a community that has a great deal of focus on testing, which is huge. That was honestly what drew me to it initially, was I love testing. So having a community, I think JavaScript has a bit of a duct tape community. It doesn't think about testing as much. It thinks about how do we slap this together and be as productive as we can in the short term. Whereas Elixir seems to have this community of how do we build this right? We still want to be productive, but we also want to be productive 5 years from now, not, get whatever we can done this weekend and then be half as productive the next week because now we have to work with this spaghetti. So there's just a lot of care and attention put into the community and the ecosystem, and the culture around it is phenomenal. So that's one of the benefits. But I'd love to hear what Mike thinks.
Yeah. Well, so first to your point about the community, it's huge. I remember when I started in Elixir in 2014, and I remember being in the IRC chat and Jose jumping in and answering a question. I'm like, this is the guy that wrote the language and was answering some questions I didn't know what I was doing. And to be clear, and this is going back to my previous statement about how I've jumped in and looked at code that's just absolutely terrible. That includes my own. I have one of the first things I worked on was an open source project, and the code's still out there. And looking back at that code, it's scary. It's not great. So just saying that, putting that out there that it's, yeah. But again, it worked. It was it did what it needed to. And I lost my train of thought. The boiled down question again, Brooklyn.
What are the benefits of transitioning to Elixir?
Yes.
And I really like your comment. Bad code doesn't mean bad developer. If I can just kind of jump on that, we all write horrible code. Calling code horrible is not an insult to a developer. It's an acknowledgement of humanity.
Right. Yeah. So, why would we prefer Elixir over JavaScript? Having written both, one huge aspect of it for me is that when you're doing something in JavaScript, it almost always feels like the thing that you want to do, you have to hack together a solution that is just doesn't make sense. Reading it, you're going to be like, what is this? But it's the only way to get it to actually work is this weird, crazy hack that you have to put together. And then that becomes, then someone decides to make it a library, right? And then now it's a library that no one wants to go back and maintain because it's a terrible solution to whatever, the thing is. And I really get bothered by hacky solutions to get around something just to get it to work, right? If the language provides something, there should be, when you use it in what would be a logical manner, it should work that way, right? JavaScript, that's not the case too often. In Elixir, it's almost always the case that the way that, if you say, what's the simplest way to approach this? We'll do that, and it'll just work. Way more often than you would find in JavaScript. And so for me, that's having the clean, elegant solution, the simple, clean, elegant solution be the one that works and is the best, whereas in JavaScript, the clean, simple, elegant solution just doesn't work, and you don't know, it doesn't make sense why. It's just whatever. Or they just don't have the primitives to do the clean, simple, elegant solution. So that's for me. That's where Elixir just makes things.
So when I go to edit this in post, I'm gonna find that meme of where the sink is all cobbled together and barely standing up.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
and it's if your code works, don't touch it. And it's somebody touches it and it just crumbles.
Right.
Yeah, I definitely got to find that. Yeah, for sure. But no, that's super helpful because as a marketer for the company, these are all great tidbits, and that's why I love being a part of these when I can sit in on it. It helps, like watching them is one thing, but being a contributor, and for all the listeners out there, this isn't a roundtable / video podcast for just engineers and developers or software engineers that work on Elixir. Like if you're curious about it, these gentlemen here on the call, you can find them anywhere on Twitter, what have you. I'll put their handles in the info section on YouTube, but we're a very open company, and all of our projects are open source and very easy to get a hold of. So I would encourage you to reach out. Don't reach out to me. I don't know Jack about it, but I'll point you in the right direction, or hit us up on the contact us page. But we do not do comments on YouTube for various reasons. However, we're easy to find, and I just brought up the kind of versus conversation just because it I guess it's a lower barrier to entry to talk about the differences between some of the most popular programming languages, and then your frameworks, and we have Phoenix and such, but a lot of people just don't know about it. So I have my work cut out for me to get in front of more people, because you all do great work. And Brooklyn, if we're at about 40-ish minutes, but if you just want to talk a little bit more about kind of what your capstone ending projects are. I know you have a couple, another month left for DockYard Academy. And then we're taking a break, month and a half. Yeah. So about 6 weeks. But kind of how it's going to wrap up, and how people that are listening today can get interested in the next cohort that you're going to be starting up, and maybe some tweaks or something to get excited about, something like that.
Definitely. I also want to mention, in terms of reasons to transition to Elixir, that's a really deep topic. And I think there's way more we could go into, but that'll be a different podcast.
We got plenty more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we haven't even covered things like fault tolerance and the scalability and the reliability of it.
Maybe we do shorts on that, on specific shorter topics, and kind of like the group discussion.
Yeah, I don't want to go into those things, but for anyone listening, I just want them to know that there's lots more there that we could and should talk about at some point. But the capstone project, we definitely will. The capstone project. So as part of doing DockYard Academy, students complete a capstone project. It's one of their core requirements for graduation. And they have a few kind of minimum requirements that each project has to do. Like it has to incorporate some kind of LiveView and PubSub. It's like a pick 2 out of 3. So it has to incorporate LiveView or PubSub. It has to work with an Ecto database that has some kind of associations with it, or it has to work with an external API and process that data. So students pick up 2 out of 3 of those requirements, or they can do more. And it is beyond those, completely up to the student to express their creativity, express their individuality, pick something that is meaningful to them, or pick something that they find technically challenging and interesting. And so, funny enough, today actually is the day that we just did our guidelines and requirements for the students. So they have started setting up their project planning. And part of the benefit of the capstone is not just building it out, which obviously is a huge benefit, but also we simulate some project management with it. So we get them to create a Kanban board through GitHub projects or whatever tool they prefer. And so that way they create all the different tickets, they prioritize them in terms of things like must have, nice to have, must have, want to have, nice to have. So they can say, well, I have to have these features. That's my MVP. These are the things that would be priority. And these are the things that are kind of neat and cool. And maybe I could put them in there if there's time. And so that keeps their capstone nice and accomplishable, but something that they can grow and expand, because, scope creep is very real. And it's one of the more common things I see is students biting off more than they can chew and not realizing how hard it is to do things. And so that is designed to teach them about learning a project management and building it out on their own. And then they also present it to the community. So May 6th, I have the time, I just don't have it in front of me, so we'll announce that at some point. But May 6th, there will be a public demo day where anyone can come in, see our students' projects. They'll present them to the community. There will be an open forum where people can ask questions and kind of pick the students' brains about their projects. And so, that's what our capstone requirements are going to be. And students are just beginning to put in some of the brain work behind they're going to do it, but behind the project. Also, we also have them create mocks or designs of their application. So they can do pen and paper. They can use something like Figma or whatever tool they prefer. So the goal is to teach them about UI, UX, and have them think about, like, what is the best way to display your data? Because if you just build it and you build it through code and you design at the same time that you code's really expensive compared to drawing it out on a piece of paper. And it's one of the most common things that developers do wrong, is like pure developers, not teams. When we have solo projects, is we often just build it without really thinking about the design and then realize, ooh, this is bad. Like, this doesn't work. And we'll kind of tweak in the code. And we spend all this time designing in code, which is the most expensive way time-wise that you can do that. So it's meant to help them learn how to just design out their applications at a really simple level, and do some of that brain work that tends to save the amount of hours you spend on a project very significantly. So that's also a fun thing that they get to work on. And that's the summary. That's our capstone project.
I mean, that's powerful. Listen to the listeners out there. You're not only learning Elixir, but other, full product delivery skills that you can jump right into a entry level or junior level job or team or company and really fit in and hit your stride. That's super cool, man. Thanks for sharing that. And I'll definitely put the links to all that below, and maybe we take some snippets from the capstone course and try to incorporate those in the future. But I think that was a good show today, gentlemen. I don't have any more questions or things to talk about. Marketing's boring, so this isn't a marketing show. But awesome. Thanks for sharing those things, Mike and Brooklyn. And do you guys have anything else?
Just want to mention my email if people want to reach out. So that'll be in the show notes, all the information to contact me. I love it when people reach out with literally anything about Elixir. Like, I really do want to encourage people. Send me an Elixir question. Send me, if you have a request about DockYard Academy, you have a bug in your code and you can't figure it out. Like, seriously, completely open communication line. I think that's part of what makes the Elixir community very special is, there is such an open communication to everyone in the space. So please feel free to reach out. And I hear the class bell ringing, so I do need to head off to class. But thank you for an excellent episode, gentlemen. And for everyone else, we will see you on the next episode.
Have a good one.